Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take your source material and really strip away all the filler. We're here to distill the crucial insights, the facts that might surprise you, and the deep emotional currents that make a story stick with you.
Yeah, and our mission today is very focused. We are plunging into a really powerful narrative about memory, loss, and, well, radical transformation. We're working with excerpts from Nicholas Sparks' 1999 novel, A Walk to Remember.
A book he dedicated to his family.
Exactly. To his parents, his siblings, Patrick, Jill, Micah, and Danielle. And he also acknowledged his wife, Kathy, and sons, Miles and Ryan. It gives us a very specific, and you can feel it's a deeply personal window into the past.
And that precision is so key here. The whole account is framed by the narrator, Landon Carter. He's looking back on the most pivotal year of his life.
And it happened 40 years before the prologue's date, which is April 12th. So that puts us squarely in the American South of 1958 and 1959.
Right at the cusp of a lot of change.
Landon is 57 now, and he makes a point of saying he remembers everything. Like down to the smallest detail, the smell of the dust, the look of the sky.
He says that reliving it is this strange mix, this potent combination of sadness and joy.
And he says it so flatly, too, that if he could somehow erase the pain, all the joy would just vanish right along with it.
And it's that pain, that necessary transformation, that's really going to fuel our deep dive today.
Yeah.
He's trying to answer a core question.
Which is, what confluence of events, of generational baggage, small-town expectations, and just forced vulnerability? What led the skeptical, rebellious 17-year-old Landon Carter, a kid who thought he had it all figured out, to finally believe in miracles?
Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
So to even begin to understand Landon, we have to understand his world. Beaufort, North Carolina in 1958. This is a place that is just defined by history, by inherited reputation.
Absolutely. The Carter name didn't just carry weight, it carried a very specific and honestly a very tarnished kind of power.
Right. And the tension in Landon's life, it stems directly from the two generations of Carters who came before him.
First up, you've got his father, Worth Carter. He's this political titan who served as a congressman for nearly 30 years.
30 years. I mean, that's a lifetime in politics, especially back then in the South. And his district was massive, right?
Huge. Mostly rural North Carolina, stretching something like 20,000 square miles. Think about that scope for a second. Everything east of Raleigh and north of Wilmington.
Wow.
That scale tells you something really crucial about Worth Carter's skills. To represent a district that vast, that diverse and rural, you couldn't be a firebrand. You had to be a master of consensus.
The ultimate peacemaker.
Totally.
Yeah.
Landon remembers his father having this incredible, almost unnerving, smooth demeanor. He was the kind of politician who could, and this is Landon's phrase, kiss the ugliest babies known to mankind and still come up with something nice to say.
He had to be politically bulletproof.
Exactly. But that public image, the smooth statesman, it was, by necessity, a reaction to where the Carter fortune came from, which was anything but smooth.
Oh, yeah. This is where it gets dark. His legacy was built on a foundation laid by his father, Landon's grandfather.
Who is repeatedly and very bluntly called a true bastard in the sources.
And that's where we hit the foundational rot of the whole Carter family. The grandfather didn't start with some legitimate business. He started with criminality.
He was a massive bootlegger during Prohibition, running rum straight up from Cuba, establishing the cash flow that just fueled everything that came after.
And that illegal cash, it gets laundered and turned into economic control fast. He buys up huge tracts of land, employs sharecroppers, which was common, but he did it with a particularly ruthless twist.
A really ruthless twist. The source material is very specific here. He systematically kept 90% of their tobacco crops.
90%.
90. And at the same time, he created a debt trap. He'd loan the sharecroppers the money they needed to get by, but at what Landon calls ridiculous interest rates.
So the intention was never for them to pay it back.
Not at all. The loans were just legal tools to seize everything they had left, their small bits of property, their farm equipment, eventually all their land, through foreclosure.
That is the textbook definition of predatory wealth building. It's just calculated cynicism on a massive scale.
And it gets even darker during the Depression. The grandfather opens Carter Banking and Loan, but only after something very suspicious happens.
The fire.
The fire. The only other bank in a 2-county radius mysteriously burns down and, funny enough, never reopens.
That detail is just chilling. It suggests not just ruthless ambition, but,
Yeah.
it suggests active, probably criminal elimination of the competition to get a total monopoly.
Right. And he then used this bank to foreclose on dozens of legitimate businesses all across the region, and he'd only keep the original owners on with a minimal salary.
Just enough to keep them from leaving.
But low enough that they were always subservient. And he never, ever kept his promise to sell their businesses back when the economy got better.
So the grandfather dies, a rich man, sleeping with his mistress on a yacht off the Cayman Islands, and never faces any consequences for the ruin he left behind.
None. And Landon's entire worldview is shaped by knowing this. Knowing his family's comfort, their prestige, it comes directly from this deep, unpunished unfairness.
Which brings us back to Landon himself.
Hmm.
Because his father, Worth Carter, is gone 9 months of the year in Washington, D.C.
So Landon is basically raised by the ghost of a father. He sees the congressman as a total stranger. He's missing that constant guiding manly influence.
And that absence, you can see it leads directly to Landon's path of, well, mild rebellion.
Very mild by today's standards. I mean, in the 1950s, their worst offenses were like soaping up car windows or eating boiled peanuts in the local graveyard.
Right. Meanwhile, Landon's mother is playing the part of the traditional, sweet, gentle Southern woman who stays in Beaufort.
She tolerates the congressman's absence because they both agreed that Landon should grow up in that small-town setting.
And we learn she wasn't exactly the greatest homemaker.
No, she relied on a cook, Helen, and a maid, which just reinforces that, even without the patriarch around, the Carter family's ill-gotten wealth maintained a certain social distance and comfort.
Okay, so now we have to flip to the opposition. The Sullivan family, anchored by Reverend Hegbert Sullivan. He is maybe the greatest moral thorn in the Carter side.
Hegbert is a figure straight out of the Old Testament. Landon figures he's about 72 years old, with skin so translucent and clammy that kids genuinely believed you could see the blood flowing through his veins.
And his white hair was like those bunnies you see in pet stores.
Yeah. And he was a fire and brimstone preacher. His main target was always fornicators, but he was just as passionate about politics. He preached that communism was a sickness that doomed mankind to heathenhood.
And that fiery stance, it brings this long-running generational conflict right out into the open.
The feud was visceral. Hegbert, we find out, actually worked for Landon's predatory grandfather before he found the ministry.
No way.
Yeah. So when he starts preaching in the same church the Carters attended, his sermons about greed and usury, they were clearly pointed moral attacks on the family who'd previously employed him.
And who had benefited from all that exploitation.
Exactly. And the political angle just intensified it. Hegbert's anti-communism stuff was explicitly aimed at Congressman Worth Carter.
Right, this is the era of McCarthyism.
But Worth Carter sat on a House committee looking into red influence, and he consistently wanted facts over the kind of hysterical rhetoric Hegbert was peddling from the pulpit.
So you get this incredibly awkward public spectacle where Worth Carter has to sit through these fiery, obviously pointed sermons.
Pretending not to listen. Then he goes home and tries to diffuse it by mentioning some scripture about the poor. It just shows how deeply Hegbert resented the Carters and how much they were trying to manage that stained reputation.
And all of this profound personal and political history, it leads directly to the annual church play, The Christmas Angel.
Right. Hegbert wrote it himself because he distrusted the ghosts in Dickens' A Christmas Carol. He actually tried to rewrite Dickens, but gave up when he made Scrooge turn into a preacher who heads off to Jerusalem.
So he wrote his own. And the emotional resonance was, I mean, it was massive.
And we need to focus on why it was so incredibly popular. It sold out the Beaufort Playhouse twice a year, and it's because the play is based directly on Hegbert's own devastating personal tragedy.
Hegbert was 55 when his daughter, Jamie, was born. His younger wife had already gone through 6 miscarriages, and then she died during childbirth.
And the play's main character, Tom Thornton, his story mirrors that tragedy exactly. A man loses his wife in childbirth, is left to raise their daughter alone, and goes through this profound crisis of faith.
So when the town watched it, they knew it was Hegbert's real story. His open, raw wound turned into art.
They weren't just entertained, they were emotionally overwhelmed. Landon says they cried buckets every single time they saw it. This real-life basis gave the play an immense, almost unbearable emotional weight.
A weight that his daughter, Jamie, has to carry with her every single year.
Every year.
So that whole rich, complicated history sets the stage. Now we move into Landon's immediate problem. It's his senior year, 1958, and his future is looming. And it all hinges on his college application.
Completely. Landon's grades were let's just say mediocre. His acceptance to UNC Chapel Hill, his father's alma mater, was touch and go.
Which puts a lot of pressure on Worth Carter, who really needs his son to uphold the family's political tradition.
So the father comes home and suggests a purely calculated solution. Landon has to run for student body president to beef up his application.
Landon sees it for what it is, a purely transactional move designed only to impress some admissions officer.
But he executes the plan with some ruthless high school political savvy. He studies his competition. There's John Foreman, who was smug and always picking lint off his clothes.
And Maggie Brown, who was smart but had gained 20 pounds, and Landon observes that not a single guy would vote for her.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal. He ends up winning, not because of his own charisma, but by relying heavily on the athletic vote that was mobilized by his popular, well-connected best friend, Eric Hunter.
But the victory backfires on him immediately.
Instantly. The newly elected student body president is now required to attend the homecoming dance with a date.
And Landon panics. His social pool is completely dried up. His ex-girlfriend, Angela Clark, had just dumped him for a 20-year-old mechanic named Lou.
His desperation is just palpable. Landon's internal list of options kind of highlights how low his social standing really is.
Right. He can either take his mother,
or he can face the social humiliation of spending the night scooping punch all night long or mopping up the barf in the bathroom.
and the only other dateless guy was Carrie Dennison.
The annoying, high-pitched tuba player who was also the treasurer and just asked endless, irritating questions. The source material makes it clear that being paired with Carrie Dennison at the dance was Landon's ultimate social nightmare.
So Landon has this horrible realization that Carrie Dennison must be doing the exact same math.
And they both arrive at the same conclusion. Jamie Sullivan is the only viable option left. She's an equal opportunity saint. She's kind to everyone, so surely she wouldn't say no to either one of them.
And that realization kicks off this frantic, desperate race to beat Carrie to the punch.
We get this wonderfully descriptive scene of Landon running at a full clip for about 100 yards before a severe cramp just cripples him.
He ends up looking like a wheezing version of the Hunchback of Notre Dame, sweaty, panicked, and totally winded by the time he gets to Jamie's door.
The effort is intense, but asking the question is even harder. Even after that mad dash, he still struggles internally to actually ask her because he's so embarrassed by the obligation.
But when he finally blurts it out, Jamie agrees. But her condition is what initially defines their whole relationship in Landon's mind.
Yeah, she looks him right in the eye and says, "You have to promise that you won't fall in love with me."
And Landon's immediate internal reaction is so crucial here. He thinks this is hilarious.
Absolutely hilarious. It confirms his ego, his perception of her, that she is so far beneath him socially that the very idea of him falling for her is absurd. So the promise is easy to make.
So before the date, there's the obligatory anxiety-inducing meeting with Reverend Hegbert.
Who shows up in overalls and a t-shirt looking like a farmer, and he does not mince words. He immediately questions Landon's true intentions, asking if he's planning any pranks or trying to embarrass her.
And Landon is genuinely shocked by this. Even though his family's reputation is built on ruthlessness, Landon himself hasn't fully internalized that cynicism yet.
Not at all. He sees himself as a decent, if mischievous kid. The idea that he would maliciously harm Jamie is a bitter pill for him to swallow.
The dance, of course, descends into the exact social chaos Landon wanted to avoid.
Though not in the way he expected. He gets confronted by Angela Clark's new boyfriend, Lou, the mechanic, who's already tense and has been spiking the punch bowl.
Lou sees Landon supposedly staring at Angela, and he's ready to start a serious fight.
It's a really high-stakes moment, and Jamie uses sheer, uncalculated kindness to just diffuse the potential violence.
She interrupts them by recognizing Lou, not as a threat, but by remembering his grandmother's house on Faster Road, where Jamie had helped carry in groceries the week before.
That is pure Jamie Sullivan. She sees people, not their social roles, and her unexpected, cheerful recognition completely throws Lou's petroleum-damaged brain, as Landon puts it.
He's instantly disarmed. The fight just fizzles out completely.
But then comes the devastatingly ironic payoff. It fulfills Landon's worst predate prophecy.
Angela, the whole reason for the conflict, has had too much spike punch and starts vomiting all over the ladies' restroom.
And Lou, the classy guy, just slinks away in embarrassment.
And who's left to handle the crisis? Landon Carter, the newly elected student body president, in his best blue suit, on all fours, cleaning up vomit with Jamie.
It is the literal social ruin he had dreaded.
But the scene ends on such a surprising note. Jamie, who is now also covered in puke, still manages to sincerely thank Landon for the good time.
And it drives Landon crazy because she seems genuinely happy. And this establishes an early, undeniable connection, one that's rooted in this shared gross misfortune. It solidifies his social ruin, but it also lays the groundwork for something so much deeper.
Okay, so after the homecoming dance, Landon is now socially branded by his association with Jamie, and that bond is immediately reinforced by a new, unavoidable obligation.
The Christmas Angel play. It required the participation of all the high school seniors.
And Jamie comes to Landon because the original actor for the lead role of Tom Thornton, a kid named Eddie Jones, was just not suitable.
No. Eddie was skinny, pimpled, he stuttered, he had a nervous endectic. And Jamie was terrified that performing the play, her father's most personal, painful work with the awkward Eddie, would just lead to ridicule.
Her motivation was pure protection. She wanted to honor her father's play, her mother's memory, and she knew that ridicule would just break Egbert's heart. So Landon reluctantly takes the part.
We get this quick, colorful snapshot of the school's drama teacher, Miss Garber. 6'2", flaming red hair, overweight, and she loved wearing flower-patterned muumus.
And she was constantly using the word marvelous and was described as being big into the self stuff, which gives us a little comedic relief in this heavy story.
Landon resists at first. His friends tease him relentlessly, joking that he and Jamie are getting engaged.
During rehearsals, he's just stumbling through his lines, cracking jokes, telling himself he already served his penance by taking her to the dance. His heart is just not in it.
But then opening night comes and everything shifts. The audience is massive, over 400 people, mostly the blue-haired ladies from the church, but Landon's friends are there too, ready to mock him. Landon is backstage, just anticipating a total disaster.
But when Jamie finally makes her entrance, the whole room just draws a collective breath.
She hadn't been helping move props because her costume was too delicate, so this was the big reveal. And she wasn't wearing her usual tight, severe bun. Her hair was hanging loosely, longer than I imagined, and she had on subtle makeup.
The transformation is just startling. Landon notes that her white flowing dress and the glitter in her hair caught the stage lights, sparkling like a crystal halo.
And for the very first time, Landon sees Jamie not as the socially awkward minister's daughter, but as genuinely, breathtakingly beautiful.
That moment just shatters his resistance. Landon, who had been warned about his lackluster delivery of the key line, finally says it.
You're beautiful.
And the source material stresses that this time he means it with his whole heart. The sincerity of his performance just lifts the entire cast, and the play is a smash success.
Egbert is backstage, crying, and he whispers, "My angel."
And after that success, Jamie immediately pivots to her next focus, collecting donations for the orphans. She asks Landon to help her retrieve the pickle jars and coffee cans she had placed around town.
And she tells him she wanted this Christmas to be the most special one of all.
This sets up a critical moment in Landon's character arc. It's the moment he chooses to behave morally, entirely on his own, for someone else's benefit. He spends days collecting the jars.
And what he finds is just utterly depressing. The jars are filled with pennies, slugs, paper clips, all tossed in as jokes by people like his friends.
After counting it all up, the total for the entire year is only $55.73.
Landon knows this will crush Jamie. She was banking on this money to give the children a special Christmas. He just can't bear to see the sadness on her face. This is the turning point. He decides to lie.
When they count the money together in her living room, Landon subtly pads the total, faking receipts and claiming the total is nearly $247.
He frames it as a financial miracle that the town's charity came through, and he explicitly notes that for the first time in his life, lying felt like the right thing to do.
Let's pause on that for a second. This is a profound shift for Landon. He grew up knowing his family's massive fortune was built on lies, on violence, on predatory financial deceit.
Right. And here, he uses a lie, a small, personal financial manipulation to create kindness and emotional truth. He's literally trying to manufacture a miracle for Jamie.
It's his first truly altruistic act, completely separate from any family obligation or school necessity.
And it connects directly to his eventual reconciliation with his father. Landon is replacing the cynical financial legacy of his grandfather with this small, tender act of financial generosity. It shows he's starting to reject that Carter cynicism.
So on Christmas Eve, Landon goes with Jamie to the orphanage in Morehead City, and he sees how sparse the facilities are, confirming the need for the money. A cracked ping pong table, kids coloring on old newspapers.
And Jamie, she's wearing a red V-neck sweater Landon had given her, and her hair is down again. She reads, "'Twas the night before Christmas to the children."
And in the dim, ethereal glow of the Christmas tree, Landon sees her not just as pretty, but as having this kind of fragile normalcy and beauty that just captivates him.
And he realizes he has completely broken his promise. He's fallen deeply in love with her.
In that intimate moment after the reading, Jamie gives Landon her gift, her mother's old, worn Bible. And then she reveals her ultimate, simple life goal.
I want to get married. Specifically, with her father walking her down the aisle in a church that is bursting with people.
Which is just a heartbreaking wish, because Landon, looking at her, realizes she's talking about a future that seems increasingly unattainable. The sheer earnestness of that one goal moves him so profoundly.
And immediately after this, the narrative starts laying down these unmistakable tragic hints.
Jamie tells him, very matter-of-factly, that she doesn't think she's going to college despite being a top student, a statement that had already caught him off guard earlier.
He also notices her growing fatigue, her listlessness, and she asks him this strange, probing question. "My father worries about you too, Landon."
That query is so revealing. Egbert knows Jamie is dying, but he's also watching his daughter fall in love with the son of his family's enemy.
Who will inevitably be devastated. He's worrying about the grief that Landon is about to face.
And Landon, after all this internal struggle and now realizing how deep his feelings are, confesses his love. "You're the best thing that ever happened to me."
The immediate response is, of course, it's devastating. Jamie collapses into tears, whispering, "Please don't say that. I'm so sorry."
And then comes the revelation that just stops Landon's world cold. She says it plainly.
"I'm very sick, Landon. I'm dying, Landon."
The specific diagnosis, a rare, unresponsive form of leukemia, a fact she's known since the summer, with a grim prognosis of a year or less to live.
The moment Jamie reveals she has leukemia, every single confusing, frustrating, or strange event that came before just snaps into this painful, heartbreaking clarity for Landon.
Yeah, it's that instant retrospective tragedy. It explains Egbert's silent, weary anguish that Landon had noticed. It explains Jamie's bizarre condition for the homecoming dance, "Don't Fall in Love with Me."
Her intense focus on making that Christmas special for the orphans, the gift of her mother's Bible.
Her determination to make The Christmas Angel a success, even replacing Eddie Jones. All of it.
Even Egbert crying backstage whispering, "My angel." It now carries the full weight of a final, profound farewell to his daughter. The puzzle pieces form this just devastating picture. And the news couldn't stay secret. On Sunday, January 10th, 1959, Egbert announces it to the congregation.
The church, which was already so invested in the Sullivan family tragedy through the play, just erupts in shock and wailing. The news spreads through the high school, causing universal grief. Students crying openly in the halls.
But Jamie, despite being the one who's sick, she remains the calm anchor in all of this. She patiently explains the progression of her disease.
She reveals why she kept it a secret. She didn't want to spend her last months being stared at in pity by the whole town.
And she says the play was the thing that kept me healthy for so long, this determination to live fully while she still could.
Landon's reaction is the complete opposite. He's just consumed by a paralyzing fear. He cycles through shock, denial, sadness, anger.
His immediate focus is self-pity and helplessness. He's so worried about doing or saying the wrong thing. And he's tormented by the realization that he barely knew her when she was healthy. He'd only really been in love with her for 18 days.
His love is immediately tested by the reality of death. And the crisis is so profound, it forces an intervention from his own family, driven by his mother.
She realizes Landon is drowning in this emotional turmoil.
So she gives an ultimatum to Worth Carter, who is, as usual, in Washington, D.C. If he doesn't come home immediately to support Landon and the girl he loves, he might as well stay in Washington forever.
And it forces the congressman to put his family and heart before politics for the first time in years.
Worth Carter comes home. And this is where the family legacy becomes so deeply relevant. Using the family's immense resources, the wealth that was built on bootlegging and usury and foreclosures, he procures full-time nurses, expensive medical equipment, and the best medication available in 1959.
This intervention lets Jamie stay home to die, bypassing the hospital, which was her deepest wish. And we have to acknowledge the powerful moral ambiguity here.
The dirty money.
The dirty money that ruined dozens of families in Beaufort is now being used by the congressman to commit an act of pure, unparalleled kindness. This sets up our final question perfectly. The Carter family is finally using its power and wealth for good.
They're essentially redeeming the family's economic actions through a moral one.
Exactly. And the emotional payoff for father and son is immediate and cathartic. Overwhelmed by the crisis and his father's unexpected decisive support, Landon cries on Worth Carter's shoulder for the first time in his life.
And the crisis, which was driven entirely by Jamie, begins to heal that long-standing estrangement between Landon and his father.
And Jamie's transforming power, it extends beyond the Carters. Eric Hunter, Landon's best friend and one of Jamie's chief tormentors, he visits her at her bedside.
Eric, who is the embodiment of Beaufort's superficial social structure, is completely heartbroken.
He apologizes so sincerely for his past behavior. His voice cracks with emotion when he tells Jamie, "You're the best person I'll probably ever know."
And he leaves an envelope with over $400 they'd collected for the orphanage. A final, sincere act of service and atonement, mirroring Landon's earlier, smaller act of financial generosity.
She has broken through the cynicism of the entire student body.
Meanwhile, Landon is desperately searching for guidance beyond his own fear. He turns to the gift Jamie gave him, her mother's Bible.
He starts reading and he finds these underlined passages that speak directly to his anguish and his search for meaning.
The first one he finds is Psalm 22, this raw cry for divine help. I cry to you, my Lord, my rock. Do not be deaf to me, for if you are silent, I shall go down to the pit like the rest.
It perfectly reflects the shared, silent grief that Hegbert and Jamie had been carrying for months.
Later, Jamie, as she gets weaker, shares the specific passage from Corinthians she wanted to read at her wedding.
Love is always patient and kind. It is never jealous. Love is never boastful or conceited. It is never rude or selfish.
The passage just encapsulates Jamie Sullivan's whole essence, a definition of love that is entirely selfless and pure. It sets this impossible standard for Landon, but it also gives him the clarity he needs to move past his fear and into action.
Landon keeps reading the Bible, and he finds the words that unlock his heart's purpose. I am not commanding you, but I want to test the sincerity of your love by comparing it to the earnestness of others.
And he realizes he has to stop focusing on his fear and the shortness of their time, and instead he has to act. He has to give Jamie the one dream she always wanted.
He rushes first to Hegbert, then to Jamie's bedside. He proposes marriage.
Jamie says yes, and they both just break down in tears, this mixture of profound joy and crushing sorrow. Their marriage would symbolically bring the Carter and Sullivan families together, healing wounds that stretched all the way back to the bootlegging grandfather and the fiery minister.
The wedding takes place shortly after, on March 12, 1959, and the church is, just as Jamie wished, bursting with people. Over 200 guests attend, with more standing outside, including Eric, Margaret, even Lou and his grandmother. The whole town gathers to witness this unexpected miracle.
And Landon's father, Worth Carter, stands proudly beside him as his best man, a profound symbol of their mended, salvaged relationship.
Jamie, who had been bedridden for 2 weeks and was extremely weak, insists on standing.
She refuses the wheelchair. She insists on taking that long walk down the aisle, supported by her father, fulfilling her dream through sheer, terrifying will. Landon calls it the most difficult walk anyone ever had to make.
When she finally reaches Landon, she's spent, and the gasps of joy from the congregation turn into spontaneous applause.
And then Hegbert makes the final symbolic gesture of reconciliation. Realizing they're sitting lower than he is, he kneels before them both.
He looks at Landon and his daughter, and he sets aside his traditional role as the one who gives away the bride. He says, I can no more give Jamie away than I can give away my heart. But what I can do is to let another share in the joy that she has always given me.
With that, he pronounces them husband and wife. It signifies the complete, tearful acceptance of Landon into the Sullivan family and the end of the generational feud. Landon smiles, having fulfilled his purpose, and he kisses her softly.
Wow.
Landon closes his story from the perspective of a 57-year-old man. He knows that he still wears his wedding ring and has never felt the desire or even the right to take it off.
He stresses that he would never regret the decision. He says he would have married Jamie even if some miracle had instantly cured her.
Because she profoundly saved him. She taught him the essential value of forgiveness and kindness. She transformed him from that cynical, skeptical rebel who was hiding behind his family's corrupt reputation
into the man he eventually became. The man who would choose to lie for kindness and act for love. Their marriage cemented that reconciliation, bringing the Carter and Sullivan families together and healing decades of conflict.
He reflects on her incredible optimism, her cheerfulness, that she sustained even in the face of death, and the transforming power she had on every single person who knew her.
He realizes she wasn't just the angel who saved the fictional Tom Thornton in the play. She was the true angel who saved everyone around her.
And as he closes the book on his memory of that pivotal year, he leaves us with one final thought. Something he intentionally held back through the entire story, allowing the weight of events to earn this conclusion.
I now believe, by the way, that miracles can happen.
You know, this whole source material is a tapestry woven with contradictions and redemption. We established early on that Landon's grandfather built the Carter fortune through morally reprehensible means, bootlegging, usury, foreclosures on the poor.
Right. Yet, 4 decades later, we saw Landon's father, Congressman Worth Carter, use that very same corrupt inheritance, that dirty money, to provide specialized, expensive medical care.
Care that allowed Jamie to die at home, fulfilling her deepest, most personal wish. The money created through exploitation was repurposed for pure, self-sacrificing love.
So here's the provocative thought for you to carry forward as you reflect on this deep dive. If the original wealth was created through morally questionable means, does its ultimate application to an act of pure, life-saving kindness retroactively change the moral nature of that money, or the legacy of the family that provided it?
Does one single, profound act of love have the power to redeem generations of calculated greed? Something for you to consider as you reflect on Landon and Jamie's walk to remember.